Which type of tattoo makes you cringe the most? I work with the deceased. I've seen a direct correlation between only God can judge me tattoos and being a victim of gunshot homicide. Juggalo tattoos don't bode well for MVAs. Tasmanian devils go hand in hand with gastric bleeds from chronic alcohol consumption. The clinically depressed seem to like dolphins. This is the most interesting comment on here. She Any tattoos of genitals or an anus makes me cringe. Has anyone else seen the video of the girl at a tattoo convention getting her butthole tattooed? Just me, okay. Even this one? Well, that's just about enough internet for me today. Risky click of the day. I honestly expected to get RR. Me too, me too. Oh man, that's one of the classiest tattoos I've ever seen. I wanna know what choice one was. Friend of mine has several vagina tats all over his body. Across his rib cage, the tat looks like a dinosaur arm is punching out of his side, but of course it's exiting a large vagina. Another vagina with an eye. On his leg looks like a giant plant going up his leg and all buds are vagina. His wife got a Hello Kitty coming out of a vagina tattoo. Somehow convinced his wife to get a motorboat tattoo between her tits that looks drawn by a 5-year-old. You would be put into a cringe coma. You're friends with this person? I definitely feel bad for his wife. One of those where you were great friends in public school and high school, keep in touch over the years and both moved to one of the biggest cities in North America. If it wasn't for the early connection we would never cross paths due to totally different career/lifestyle choices. Don't feel bad. I stopped once she followed suit after her husband tattooed his whole head. She shaved half of her head and got a head tattoo. Did they become bad people once they got weird tattoos? Or are bad tattoos enough to end a friendship? Or are they part of a larger problem? Not bad people at all. Just different priorities as we get older. Let's just say when having parties, I always had to worry if he was going to offend someone or say something vulgar to get attention. Plus dealing with someone high 24/7 gets boring fast. Better than a cringe : I suppose. I have literally seen someone have a bunch of detached penises poking out from a paper bag with the words "eat it" on the bag, signifying that someone should eat a bag of dicks. LMAO, it was the most bizarre thing I have seen on someone's calf ever. Were you watching Just Tattoo of Us? What is that? A show for awful tattoos? LOL, but no. The butthole tattoo is actually on this dude who does jackass-like stunts on YouTube, and the bag of dicks was on this guy's calf at one of the local bars where I live like 2 years ago. Maybe it was the guy on Twitter the other night that told me to eat a bag of dicks. Now I understand. I know a guy who has a tattoo of the Nestle bunny with its trousers around its ankles, mid-cum shot. This man has children. I simply cannot imagine. I really want to see a picture. I'm sure I'd regret it. Used to sell cars. Sold a car once to a guy who had a naked woman bending over, ass facing the viewer, vagina and butthole both there. Was awkward the entire time considering dude was there with his family, one of which was a very young, 5 to 8 year range, daughter. There was a guy who tatted his sack orange with a face on it and called it the Sack-o'-lantern. I would like to drink with this man. I think the fact that he also has Jollibee, the mascot of a Filipino fast food chain, tattooed on his forehead makes it infinitely worse. He only did that because he really tried to get a job there. The ear makes me so uncomfortable. I once saw a tattoo on TV, a reality show, where someone had to get a tattoo but they weren't allowed to pick it. The artist made it a woman taking a shit on the floor. I only think it's not bad when someone gets a portrait of their cat done. You know, from the point of view most cat owners see, which is butthole. I have an electrical outlet tattooed. I love it and it's pretty great. A guy I was seeing told me my kids wouldn't know what it was because we wouldn't have outlets in the future. So it was a bad tattoo, but his forearm of a chick fingering herself. Yes, I'm going to have to explain my tattoos. One time, at a party, I met a guy who was introduced as Penis. I was like, people actually call you that? Why? He pulls up his sleeve to reveal a large, half-flaccid, yet very veiny and wet cock and balls tattooed on his inner bicep. Good times. That episode of I Think Ink Masters where that woman had the tattoo of the flaming dick with the word hot rod under it. I wanted a tattoo of dick butt on my butt cheek when I was 19, for shits and giggles. Thank God I didn't have any money back then. Hey, now, I've got a tattoo of a tanuki gripping his giant balls on my leg. Nothing cringy about that. Let's see it. Also, the ones on the genitals are cringe unless they're funny. Shouldn't a tattoo be something that you don't already have? A human appendage is something that's already on you, unless it's a body part that's only found on the opposite sex. Even then, tattoos of body parts are just kind of blah. I think that a tattoo should be something unique, and the more abstract the better. A tattoo of a body part that you already have is like wearing your work uniform to a costume party. Seen Elmer Fudd pointing his shotgun at a butthole. Rabbit tracks on the other cheek. That was interesting. Yeah, that person is definitely making a statement. It's not the kind of statement that I would choose to make, but to each his own. Me too, but the pain doesn't last long. Oh yes. Getting your dick tattooed or tattooing a dick on your bicep to show your manliness. Of, or on. Or, both. Either. I think that a tattoo should be creative and unique, without being crude. What about an arrow pointing to your anus? That kind of tattoo could limit someone's options in the dating and marriage market. Do you mean cocks, cunts and assholes? Yeah, those look better as paintings in a gallery than they do inked to human flesh. A defendant in the courtroom I clerked in during law school had homicide tattooed on his face, over his eyebrow. Not a great look. I suppose that tattoo saves conversation when you're convicted and other guys in prison ask you what you're in for. Online pirates will need both cheeks to type up theft of intellectual property. In the same vein, if you have an "only God can judge me" tattoo, I'm 90% sure a court of law has proven or will prove said tattoo incorrect. I was on a jury where one defendant had Stockton tattooed on his arm. For the entire trial he wore long-sleeve dress shirts, and part of his defense was that he couldn't have committed the crimes he was accused of in Stockton because he didn't live there. Prosecution asked him to roll his sleeves up. Maybe he just liked helping out Karl Malone. He should have got the words "I don't live in" tattooed above the first tattoo. Still doesn't mean he did it. What was the final verdict? He did it. And all the other things. It was a 10-week trial, Felonies upon felonies. In nursing school I had to discharge a preemie baby from the NICU to a homeless couple. The father had "fuck you" tattooed on his forehead, a murder scene tattooed on the back of his head, and was wearing a shirt with a stripper on it that said "I support single mothers." Decided on that day that the NICU was not for me. That was really eye-opening for me when I had kids. Shortly after the baby was born, they just said, "Okay, you can take her home now." I was like, what? You're not going to give me a test on baby skills or, I dunno, at least check to make sure I'm not a drug dealer? Nope. Nothing. You can take a newborn baby home with zero qualifications. Fucking A, it still scares me for the possibilities out there. You mean fucking A? Lots of people like to fucking A. I personally would rather fucking A than get a fucked. Mostly because of the mess after. Some may even say, asexual. I always mess that up as well as the poop shoot. Could CPS not have been called? For what? Having distasteful tattoos? No, because they were homeless. There were 2.5 million homeless children in the United States in 2014, and I doubt it's gotten better since then. I totally agree. I was saying the parents should not have been able to take a preemie baby, or any baby for that matter, out of the hospital with no place to live. Oh yeah, this was the result of months of CPS, social workers, vocal nurses and doctors. Shit is fucked up. I believe the social worker gave the family 2 nights in a motel. CPS maintained there was nothing to be done. I mean, just because you think someone would be an unfit parent doesn't mean they will be an unfit parent. There has to be evidence and a trial most of the time. Yep. Definitely not up to me. Yeah, that's fucked up. Sadly, getting CPS involved in those situations is nearly impossible cause you need proof. Guys like that don't need kids. What they need is to be given a good talk outside and the kid placed in foster care for their safety. I can only guess how his trial went. He took a plea deal in that case. Most criminal charges end in guilty pleas. But yeah, presumption of innocence is a lovely legal concept that can be very hard to actually sell a jury on in a case like that. Murder, trust no bitches, killer. Really, any face tattoo is less than ideal. The only way it could be worse is if they had a signed confession tattooed on their face. I wouldn't put that past some of these geniuses. At least it properly said homicide instead of murder or something like that. Potential silver lining? Sentence half-served kind of person, aren't you? I never half-ass anything. I always go full ass. Me, I guess. I'm sure he had a nice side and a homo side. A guy here, UK, had his wifey's name tattooed on his face, and I don't mean just once. He had it once above each eyebrow, once on each cheekbone, once on each cheek, and a one each side of his jaw, so total like 8 times. I was a kid at the time, and my then friend's mom was best friends with the wifey in question. Because of this, I knew they had a really volatile relationship, so even then as a kid I was like, why would you do that? Anyway, fast forward a few years and the guy separated from the wifey and couldn't get a job, you know. Due to the fact her had her name tattooed 8 times on his face, so the taxpayer paid for him to have tattoo removal. That's right, ladies and gents, we just be paying for this idiot's mistakes. Hat. It used to say hate, but to increase my chances of employment, I had the E removed. How's that working out? Who doesn't like hats? If it gets that idiot a job, then I guess it's money well spent. Yeah, like what? That money would be paid back in taxes in like a year. And if it lets him get and keep a job, you've successfully turned some time from a burden on the system to a contributor. That's the end goal. That's how this works. That was my point. They were backing you up. Ah. I'm a dumbass. I read it after you said that and it was immediately obvious. True. But knowing this guy, he's a right scally. And probably never kept a job or paid any taxes. Why would the taxpayer pay to have the tattoo removal? He had it done on the NHS. Probably works out cheaper than paying him the dole. Plus he now pays taxes. Which is the end goal of providing services like this. When I was in jail when I was younger, one of the guys in my pod had a giant, shitty prison tattoo blasted on his fat, round belly that said "fuck the world," with a guy with a black hood over his head, mounting a really terrible rendition of Planet Earth Doggy Style. Whenever he'd work out, he'd talk his shirt off and flaunt it by sticking his belly out when he walked. This guy had done time in San Quentin and he'd alluded to killing people on multiple occasions. I work at a courthouse myself. A young offender, under 18, had his prisoner ID tattooed over his eyebrow. My 17-year-old son bought a tattoo gun on eBay when he was 13 without my knowledge. Well, I still think about the Emily he talked to for 2 weeks that summer BC. He tattooed her name on his arm. FML. To be fair, adults do the same thing with tattoos. Oh, 100%. Was he now 17 or 13? Nah, you just misread it. I'm sure that he only wanted to show that he was on his homie's side. Really gets rid of that pesky "what are you in for" question everyone asks. I dated an attorney for a bit. He did criminal defense and also was one of the public defenders in the county. There were times when I would go shopping with him to get clothes for female defendants that were going to court. One of his clients was in jail for assault on police officer. She had "fuck the police" tattooed on her neck, so I had to find a turtleneck for her. My boyfriend called it defending the guilty and a few innocent ones. Nevertheless, he did his best to get folks into rehab or some other thing that might help them in the future. He really hated people getting twisted for prostitution and pot crimes. Mine said something along the lines of, "Are they guilty? No. Are they innocent? Also no." He did good though, got people the help they needed and kept the bad guys in jail. Was he being tried for tax evasion? This actually sounds like something right out of Ace Attorney. And not poor impulse control. Epic. Did he win the case? No, he did not. Yep, saw a guy with Dallas tattooed on his forehead with letters as big as can be. When I went to get my first big tattoo, there was a guy leaving as I showed up who made the tattoo artist stop his gigantic tattoo in the middle of his chest that was supposed to say "Thug." Instead it just said "T.I." Maybe he worked for TILOL. Reminds me of the Hard to Kill guy. Ha ha ha. I met a guy once with full body tattoos, arms and legs, face and a giant "fuck you" on his forehead. Well, that's a dead giveaway. Maybe he was just a really big fan of homicide, life on the street. Was he there on homicide charges? Nope. What was he there for? Drugs? Nah, illegal weapon possession. I mean, that could lead to homicide. Maybe he was trying to confess to future crimes by having that tattoo, lol. I think it was actually the other way around. He used to be more involved in the life and at this point was just helping out some guys he knew by holding onto some hot weapons. I left before everything got resolved, so I know he pled out in exchange for testimony but don't know how everything panned out. A man of culture. Unemployment agencies hate him for this one easy trick. Guilty. I worked with a guy covered in face tattoos of all sorts, but the one that stood out was the one under his eye that read misunderstood. It is literally the sacred job of a lawyer to overlook that. Evidence is rather more important. I agree that evidence is paramount, although a face tattoo does make you easier to identify on a security camera. He got me. In Judge Dredd comics, criminals got face surgery to look the same. Dredd just got them tattooed with a number. I am the law. Thanks for watching. If you could like, subscribe and comment best Reddit stories for more Reddit videos.